Warning, this is going to be a somewhat negative review of X-Men First Class. I'm keeping it real. This movie had a lot of the problems that the third X-Men movie and the Wolverine movie had. It had a lot of useless characters in there, a lot of mutants that were in the movie just because they had a certain power and they had to fill up some kind of quota of superpowers, and it also had a lot of dumb shit. And by that I mean stuff that you really have to suspend your disbelief for in order to make watching the movie a positive experience. But what X-Men The Last Stand and the Origins Wolverine didn't have, and First Class does, is Michael Fassbender. This guy did for First Class what Hugh Jackman did for the first ever X-Men movie. He turned every sappy, corny thing he had to do or say, and trust me, there were a lot of them, and turned them into scene-stealing gold. But this movie is really worth watching because of the relationship that develops between Xavier and Eric. Because what's fascinating about it is that these two actually inspired each other, because Charles wasn't really into that whole mutant versus human conflict or cause before he met Eric, and Eric didn't really care about anything else except revenge until he met Charles. So basically these two, through their relationship and through their symbiosis of sorts, kind of turned each other into the great men that they were supposed to be, and of course ultimately they fell on opposite sides. This movie shouldn't even be called First Class because it made sure that by the end of it I didn't give a crap about any of these young mutants and any of these young recruits. Beast, Havoc, Banshee, and Angel, in the last half hour of the movie, they're nothing more than superpowers, really. They're nothing more than weapons. They lose all dialogue, they lose all their personality, especially Beast. Beast is the one mutant in Xavier's team outside of Mystique that received more character development, and for the first half of the movie, he's like obsessed with the fact that he has big feet. And I just want to tell Hank McCoy that as long as you look like this, no girl on the face of the earth would refuse to fuck you because of your feet. And then when Hank McCoy turns into a furry's wet dream, all of a sudden he doesn't really care about that whole thing anymore. He just loses all of his identity issues and just goes into battle because, hey, the boy has shit to do. He doesn't need a personality. And things are no better on the side of the bad guys, because Kevin Bacon, as fun as it was to hear him speak multiple foreign languages, and I think he really had fun playing this role, his character doesn't really have any depth. And Riptide, I don't think I ever even heard him say anything. Azazel is basically the Darth Maul character of the movie, being silent but badass. And Emma Frost is like Deanna Troi on the worst day on Enterprise, saying the most obvious shit. But then, she looked good saying it. I will say that the movie had good pacing, and it knew how to balance a lot of backstory and setting up the finale at the end. But the pacing worked in spite of the editing. I don't know who did the editing on this movie, but some of their transitions, especially in the beginning, were really bad. And when we reached the finale, this is especially where a lot of the dumb shit kind of concentrated. When Magneto is fighting, it's like the more outrageous his power feats are, the more likely it is that people will forget that he controls everything metal. Why, in the name of all that is holy, would you think it's a good idea to attack a guy who just lifted a submarine out of the ocean with metal rockets? And then Moira McTaggart, when she has to take him down, she uses a gun. Woman, after the rocket bit and the submarine bit, you think it's a good idea to shoot a gun at frickin' Magneto? Why don't you bang him over the head with a wooden plank, or throw a rock at him, or throw sand in his eyes? But don't use the only substance on the face of the earth that he has complete control over. I know it may seem like I'm nitpicking, but really, how difficult it is it to have a little bit of common sense when you think of these action sequences, I mean, we're already past the point where we can accept that these people can do anything. So, you just have to think of an action sequence that doesn't require you pissing all over the laws of physics or all over common sense. So, all in all, I think that Fox lucked out on a good director, a script that is based on an awesome idea of using historical events that are in themselves cool, and on a great cast. But they didn't actually learn any of their lessons. They didn't learn that you don't throw mutants in there just for the sake of throwing them in there, and they didn't learn that an action sequence, just because it's big, doesn't mean that it has to be dumb.